I just got one hot off the press too, like within like the last 10 minutes. We'll talk about. I'll tease it.
What did I miss?
A news story.
Oh, sweet.
What did I miss?
Oh no, I'm just saying I found one like the last 10 minutes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I mean, it's not critical, but it's good. It's a good story. All right, we're live on YouTube. And
Hi, YouTube.
everybody.
Hi, gang.
I should probably log in there to see who's
Nobody's here so far.
being nasty to us.
We had a pretty good turnout last week with Brittany. All right, I got notes. And I'm going to start recording in Zoom.
Wow, we're live.
I did it right away.
Hmm.
All right. I feel like I'm forgetting something.
Do you want a backup recording, David, or?
I'm on good. My backup is YouTube, Zoom recording, and audio hijack.
All right, just want to be sure.
So, Dave, you're worried you're forgetting something. Pants?
I got them on.
Okay.
They're sweatpants.
Not that.
All right, gonna start audio hijack. Yeah, then we're good.
Chuck, don't stand up.
No, I've got pants on. It's what I don't have on underneath the pants that would disturb you.
Or maybe you could stand up.
Yes.
Add in a whole new demographic, and the money just starts pouring in.
Yep.
All right. I'm ready to go.
Before it gets any more out of control.
Yeah.
I can't believe you let me on your show.
Yeah.
I know. All right. We're at 2:33. I think we're ready now. In 5, 4, 3, 2. Welcome to episode 233 of In Touch with iOS, the show that talks about iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, Apple TV, and related technologies. I'm your host, Dave Ginsburg, and my guest this week. Welcome back to Chuck Joyner. How you doing, Chuck?
I'm great, Dave. Thanks so much for having me. I'm surprised that I'm back already. It seems like I was just here.
Yeah, well, that's why we always want to bring you on, especially when there's all kinds of good stuff to talk about, as well as when Jeff Gammon joins us. We're always going to have some great lively conversation this week. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing great. And so what I'm hearing is when you want to have intelligent, lively conversation, you have Chuck come on the show. I see how it is.
Yeah. I didn't say intelligent. I just said lively conversation.
Oh,
it is intelligent, but it is intelligent too.
Wait a minute. I think I just...
That didn't go the way I was expecting.
No, I didn't go at. I stick my foot in my mouth there.
Maybe Jeff, it's when you and I are here together that the synergy is what happens.
I always get some great feedback when you guys are here, so it's always good to have you both here. So.
Great feedback.
Yeah, great.
Sure.
All right, let's move on. So this week we got a lot of good news stories, a lot of stuff going on, beta with 16.2 imminent. And like I always say, let's just jump right in and get to the news for this week. First story was Apple shares its most popular podcasts of 2022. They did reveal their top podcast episodes, shows, channels, and subscriptions that listeners engage with the podcast app throughout 2022. And no surprise, you have the big popular ones like Crime Junkie, The Daily, Dateline NBC. Crime in the crime and mystery seems to be the popular topics of many of the mainstream list of podcasts here. So, but it's good to see that Apple does this. I like to see the popular lists. I don't think we're on the top of those popular lists, but or I think we're popular enough in the technology world. But Chuck, what do you think? A lot of podcasts are out there. I tell you, it's an exciting time to be a podcaster. Actually,
it is, and first of all, I kind of think that the true crime thing is just a reflection, maybe, of where society is at the moment, with all the turmoil and conflict and everything. You would think that people would try to escape a little more from it, but instead they just seem to dive deeper. But I mean, it's great that some of these podcasts can generate the kind of numbers they are. I mean, it's appealing to a wide range of people.
It is.
The shows we all do or are involved with are quite a bit more niche, and that's fine too. That's sort of the beauty of podcasting.
It is. Yeah, I think that it's been that way for many years as we've been all doing we're doing our shows. So, so I'm glad to see podcasting get going where it's going and just continue to evolve, and mainstream media starting to accept it and participate in it too. So, what do you think, Jeff?
Well, first, when NPR gets involved, it's an important platform.
Mm-hmm.
But on the true crime podcasts, I'm not surprised that we see several, or at least, what is it? There's Crime Junkie, Morbid, Serial, My Favorite Murder, on that list. Something Was Wrong. Okay, so when I look at all of those shows, there's a common thread that is not the common thread that's the obvious one. It's a true crime story. It's about the presentation. It's compelling speakers, and it's entertaining, and it's presented in a way that just really hooks you in. And in the case of Serial, I mean, how could that not be a top show, especially with the follow-up to the series, to the original series, where ultimately, I don't think this is a spoiler because it's just general news, Adnan was ultimately released from prison.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not surprised. But when you look at the other top podcasts, for the most part, it's like really interesting stuff. Radiolab, holy crap, what an amazing series. Fresh Air, that Wait, Don't Tell Me, Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend, This American Life. Yeah, it's pretty much this is a really good list of podcasts.
Conan was smart. He joined forces with SiriusXM, and then they've become one of the #1 platforms for podcasting now because they have such a big media following, and they continue to just evolve with more and more shows on that platform too. So in fact, they're launching more satellites because they have so many listeners now with podcasts in addition to everything else that they offer. So, and not everybody subscribes to that, but it's definitely interesting.
I think it's also interesting too that as a lot of these podcasts are part of a quote unquote network, whether it's a podcast network or another kind of network, but it's creating opportunities to cross promote. In the other things on that network, it promotes these shows promote other shows on that network. And it's because I know I've got a couple in from one, not true crime, but from a particular podcast studio, and they are constantly bombarding me with, hey, we have a new show, try this, almost to the point that it's starting to become just a little annoying. But that's part of the game, and that's part of how podcasting is expanding. So it's the same thing that mainstream media did for a long time and AM and FM radio and everything else, to try to expand. So I guess it's kind of to be expected.
Yeah, absolutely. So check out that list, and there might be something that might be of interest to you besides our technology coverage. But next story, I didn't think I'd do it, but I did it. The blue check mark. Twitter Blue is going to be more expensive for iPhone to offset the App Store fees. Good old Elon here. He paid, of course, he did pay a visit to Apple Park the following week, last week, I guess, as we record, and then meeting with Tim Cook. So they worked out their differences of his worry about them removing the Twitter app. Okay, sure. And he previously advertised that Twitter Blue was going to be $7.99 per month, regardless of how the user signed up. But now they say when Twitter Blue launches, it will cost $7 if you subscribe through the Twitter website, or $11 if you subscribe through the iOS app. I don't care one bit if I'm a blue check mark. I don't think either of you are as well, right? But I just shake my head. Okay, Elon, what do you think?
My God, he is a very bad business person.
Yes,
Holy crap. And he's completely just not lost the point. I don't think he's ever understood the point of what the blue check mark meant.
Yeah.
And so this is supposed to roll out on Friday. We're recording on Thursday evening.
Mm-hmm.
I will not be surprised at all if come tomorrow it doesn't roll out, or it rolls out differently than what they're saying right now. And the multicolor check marks, and it's stupid and ridiculous. And I'm saying this as someone who has been Twitter verified for a really long time.
Yep.
And so yes, currently there's a blue check mark by my name because of that. And tomorrow that may go away, or I don't know.
I thought they were going to grandfather you in, that you get to keep it.
It's okay. So I get to keep something that now has no value at all because
everybody has it.
Yeah, because the purpose of it was so that people would know that I'm really me.
Mm-hmm.
And now it just means that people will think that I'm paying $11 a month or whatever to have a blue check mark. He's turned it into something that's worthless. Ironically, just like the company.
Wow.
How do you follow that, Chuck?
Well, yeah, I'm not sure I can, Dave.
Just wrap up the show. We're done now.
Yeah. Well, I too am Twitter verified. I am not paying for a blue check mark. I have a blue check mark. And as far as I can tell, it has not helped me pick up girls or get a discount on a car or anything. So it's fine. I don't know how I got it. But I guess
your hack from many years ago.
Yeah, well, maybe so. But I look at this and I don't feel quite as strongly in the negative as Jeff does, just because he's got to fund things. Jeff, I think your point about it doesn't really mean anything is a really good one, but on the other hand, I have a blue check mark now, and I'm not sure exactly if it really meant anything either. So I kind of feel like there's nothing lost because I didn't have it in the first place. Make sense?
It makes sense. Yeah, it's the blue check mark went from being something that signified a validation or verification of who you are to something else entirely, where at some point people started looking at it as like a prestige thing, I guess. Which I never saw it that way. When I applied for a blue check mark long ago, I did it because I was a journalist, and there were people out there trying to impersonate all kinds of people that had some sort of public presence. So I thought, I better just try, because I'm seeing so many people that are having to try and prove that these other accounts aren't them. So it'll be easier for me to prove what account is me. And I applied and got my blue check mark. I did have to go through several steps to prove who I was, which is great. And seriously, I think that was a good thing to have to do. But now it's like, it doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah, it is pretty meaningless. So let's go move on. We don't need to dwell too much on Elon at this point. Next story here. Apple has announced App Store changes, including the expanded pricing up to $10,000. Apple announced it's providing developers with an additional 700 different price points in the App Store apps. App Store apps, allowing apps to be priced as low as 29 cents and as high as $10,000. Developers who want to price their apps above $1,000 must submit a request to Apple to help prevent meaningless, expensive apps from being released on the App Store. In total, developers will have the ability to select from the 900 price points, with the 100 highest price points available upon request only. It looks like it's going to go every 10 cents up to $10, and every 50 cents between $10 and $50, and so forth. The article on Mac Rumors here has a grid of what's going to show. So you can get an app as low price as 29 cents, because I thought before that you could only do like a 99 cent and higher. I think that's what it was before.
Yes.
So interesting to see where they're going with this. I'd be curious to see who is charging $10,000 for an app. That must be something pretty special. What do you think?
I came away from this with mixed feelings. I was glad to see that they've taken the app, the bottom end down lower for those apps that probably should generate a little something and that are being given away for free right now, that are good, legitimate, credible apps. It also concerned me a little bit, though, that now anybody can put, anything up, that maybe the app just shows a picture of them and their dog, and they want you to pay 29 cents for it. So, that I don't know. I mean, I think it's a mixed bag, whatever you consider the floor as being, especially since we all have talked endlessly over the years about what seemed to be the race to the bottom, the devaluing of software. I'm with you, a $10,000 app. I don't know, but hey, I'm open to see, what it might be. As long as it's legit, I have no problem with that. But it's going to have to be a pretty impressive app.
Yeah. What do you think,
If Apple is pushing the top up that high, it tells me that there's some company that's making software that they went to distribute through the App Store that is very specialized for probably some niche market, and it's kind of software that commands a high price point, and they couldn't actually sell it because there was no price point high enough for what they needed to be able to have. So that will be fixed. Other than situations like that, I'm not sure where the value for developers is with the additional price point options that are available. Chuck, you mentioned the drive to the bottom with prices. Letting developers sell apps for 29 cents, that's not going to help their bank accounts at all.
No.
And the idea that someone could pop up an app that's a picture of them and their dog. Well, hey, what if it's a really nice dog? No, but seriously, it doesn't matter what price points Apple sets. Someone can make that app anyhow and price it at whatever the bottom tier is or higher. So giving us 29-cent option for that, it could have been a 99-cent option for that, and that same worthless app would still end up on the App Store. Anyhow, I'm just having a hard time seeing where this is helping developers.
The one thing, Jeff, though, we all have a point at which something becomes an impulse buy, or we have that value judgment that, okay, for I'll spend $4.99 on it. I'll spend 99 cents. I'll spend $4.99. $5.99 just seems like a lot more than I want to take a chance on. Especially, if I don't have any knowledge of it, if it's just something I come across. So I like the idea that they've made it, now every developer can decide for themselves exactly what they want their price point to be with no artificial levels. And I think that's got to be a positive thing for the developers. And, you're right. We're talking too much about the 29-cent app, and we should be looking just a little bit higher. But now I feel like there will be times I think that things can be priced that might be a little more appealing to me personally. Whereas before I might have said, you know what, that's just a little bit much. I think I'll move on.
I can appreciate that. At the same time, I look at a 99-cent app, and I see an app where the developer has to lose money to sell it on the App Store. You have to sell an astronomical number of licenses at 99 cents to make developing that app worthwhile. So I can't imagine any developer is going to be able to sell where it's not a loss at lower price points. And honestly, and I know a lot of people don't like this idea. I think that developers should be charging a lot more on the App Store than they do. But the problem is that people aren't valuing the software, so they don't want to pay $20, $50 for an app, but they'll pay you 99 cents for it.
Yeah.
Boy, I'm Mr. Cranky tonight, aren't I?
Well, let me be argumentative just for a second, Jeff.
No.
No, thank you. Okay, so let's say first of all, the developer makes the decision. All right, Apple doesn't force them to charge 99 cents. So they decide, and if they figure they've put $5 worth of effort into it and are selling it for 99 cents, that's on them. Okay, but I can also see, because I've seen a couple things out there, and I'm going to make it up as I go. But let's just say that you develop like five really cool wallpapers for the iPhone, and you want to sell them. You don't want to give them away, but you also know realistically that probably nobody's going to pay you $2. They're probably not going to pay you 99 cents. They might pay you 29 cents, and so it might be worth your time and trouble just to get your art out there, if you will, and maybe then draw in people with the next version of it. So I do see some benefits here too, because I think it opens up the floor for people to get in, get a taste of the App Store, maybe start to try to develop a following, or maybe I'm trying to just put a fresh coat of paint on this, but I just don't think it's a bad thing.
I hope it's not a bad thing. I fear it is.
Yeah,
okay.
Let's hope not. All right, that was good conversation on that. Chat. Let's go on to the next story here. Biggest Apple News Plus magazines may be having a tough time. This actually is from Apple Insider. Our friend Andrew Orr wrote this. New data shows that people are reading fewer big name publications in the Apple News Plus subscription service, but it's not clear if it's a sign of a wider trend. The circulation numbers were published recently by Press Gazette to show the top 25 magazines on Apple News Plus, and it had a combined circulation of over 1.3 million in the first half of 2022. That is greater than the numbers for the first half of 2021, but lower than the second half of that year. So they're going through some of the rankings here and calculating unique opens and all that stuff. So, and interesting to see some of the circulation, like People Magazine, that tends to be a fairly popular magazine, but it's down 36% year over year. So people might not be reading that as often. Whereas Men's Health is up 44%. So there's a lot of, there's a ton of magazines in News Plus. I don't probably read them as often as some do. But Jeff, what do you think on News Plus? I assume you use News Plus?
I do not use News Plus.
Oh, you don't? That's right. You don't. Okay.
See, I'm a problem child. I'm the reason News Plus isn't doing well. Okay, so Apple has so much going on. I have lost track. What year did News Plus launch?
I think it was 2021 or 2020, I think.
2020. Okay. So what I went to see are the numbers going back to the launch of News Plus. And I want to see if we're seeing an overall upward trend where, like maybe right now it's lower than it was second half of 2021, but overall the trend is going up, or did we plateau early and we're on the way down now? So I look at this and I'm like, it doesn't tell me if there's really a problem or not.
Yeah. What do you think, Chuck?
I think this has to do as much with what Jeff was talking about as it does with podcasting. There's so much stuff out there I mean, it used to be yes, I'm dating myself, sorry, but you go to the to the newsstand and there were a finite number of magazines. And usually if you slice down the genres to the things that you were interested in, you had just a few. Now you've got, I mean, it's almost an infinite number out there. And, they're not necessarily in News Plus. And I think as the economy gets a little more interesting, unless you're buying one of the packages, I'm not sure that unless you're a real news junkie that you're going to go this direction. And because we have, I mean, every magazine you just mentioned, they're competing with how many other options out there, other magazines, other just flat out websites for attention. And so I kind of see it as similar to what we're seeing in broadcast TV, where, back in the day, I mean, they had hundreds of millions of people watching, and now you're down to a single digit million number is not a bad night because of all the other options. So I'm not sure that it's possible for anybody to capture a really big piece of the market at the moment.
Yeah.
Magazines, that's always been a tough space. And watching magazines come and go, it's like a turnstile, and has been for decades now. You have a handful of what appear to be stable magazines, but in reality, they're probably freaking out and have been for years. Like, how many more issues can we really go? And then you have all of these other magazines that come and go so fast that you can't even keep track of them. Here's where part of the problem is coming in. When you're creating content for magazines, by the time it's published, that the process where it was locked in happened a few months ago for something that's coming out today. So you're talking about a medium where you have to find a way to try and make content relevant for the future. And that's really hard to do. Now, if you're doing electronic magazines, now you can have content that's relevant today. But then for something like the New Yorker or the Atlantic, National Geographic, what they're doing is creating content that is timely-ish, but has a much longer shelf life, because it's more about like a deep dive into something where you're looking at a topic from maybe if it's a political thing, you're looking at the topic over the course of weeks or months or years and writing about that, as opposed to writing about what a specific politician did yesterday. It's hard.
It's really hard. I'll correct myself. It was March of 2019 when that News Plus came out. So.
Oh, okay. So I would like to see the data going back to 2019. I want to see that trend, and then I'll let you know what I think about the numbers we're seeing today.
Yeah, they were. I remember they were pretty big when we covered it back then. So, and then they added audio stories a year later. So it's a good aggregator. I mean, and of course, when the Apple One bundle came around, people were bundling it, because I think it's like around $8.99 a month. I'll have to check that. I might be wrong.
I think it's a nice deal as part of the Apple bundle.
It is. So I use it. I like catching some of my news there, but I think we're all news junkies in the sense for technology and using aggregators to grab all of our information. So good. Both places are decent places to find your news. So next story, Tim Cook has confirmed that Apple will buy TSMC chips to be manufactured in Arizona. This was this week as we record here today, confirmed Apple that was going to purchase these chips. It's going to be US-based factories that are being constructed in Arizona. Cook was in Arizona at the announcement of this investment in the States, which was also attended by President Joe Biden as well. And thanks for the hard work of many people, these chips are not going to be proudly stamped made in America, which is something really to say much about chips and everything else that we've been dealing with. So, and they said today's only the beginning. We're combining TSMC's expertise in the unrivaled ingenuity of American workers and invest in a stronger, brighter future. And we're planting our seed in the Arizona desert. So I think it's good, something good to hear. We're always wanting to say it's made in America, and now we got these chips that are going to be made there. What do you think, Chuck?
I almost didn't see this as news. I mean, Apple needs chips. And so if TSMC is going to do it in Arizona, great. If they do it in Disney World, fine. That if the chips are up to Apple standards, Apple will buy them. So, I think the investment in chip making here is really more of a sign that they're trying to further diversify their supply chain, and not be as dependent on what we've seen up till now. So I applaud everybody for that. But beyond that, it's like, this Apple's going to buy chips. Wow, is that news?
Yeah, well, I thought it was newsworthy enough that I like the fact that we are going to have some chips made here, and that could be a trend. Because obviously with the issue that's going on right now with getting enough iPhone 14 Pros out of China, and I know they're reevaluating that as well. This could be a trend. What do you think, Jeff?
I'm with Chuck in the sense of, well, this is news. Okay, what I mean by that is Apple is buying chips from TSMC's plant in Arizona once it's completed. Of course they are. There's no way TSMC would build a plant in Arizona if they weren't making chips for Apple. That to me just seemed like a no-brainer. On diversifying, yes, absolutely. One thing that the pandemic has really driven home is that the supply chain, just in general, is very fragile and very brittle. And so if one place breaks, then it cascades out and causes so many problems. And that diversification in this case means if you have a plant in, say, Taiwan that has to shut down, or something happens, and for whatever reason you can't get chips from that plant out to where you need to actually build products, then your production lines stop. So what you need is an alternate way to get those chips where they need to go. And in a case like this, that means having plants in multiple locations, so that if something that you're making in Taiwan can't get out, okay, maybe it can come from Arizona, or maybe it comes from Mexico, or maybe it comes from India, or wherever, but you have alternate ways to keep your supply chain working. And this, I think, is a great step towards helping to eliminate at least one point in our horribly brittle supply chain.
Yeah, no, I agree. Next story. This was a big announcement this week by Apple. Apple Music is adding a karaoke experience with Apple Music Sing. Announced today, this week, as we record. Sing is a new feature in Apple Music that lets users sing their favorite songs with adjustable vocals and more. Apple Music Sing will utilize Apple Music's real-time lyrics to allow users to sing to their favorite songs while adjusting the vocals, the background vocals, and duet view to allow more than one singer. And they go through a lot of features, including adjustable vocals, real-time lyrics, background vocals, duet view. I have not played with this yet, but this is definitely, I find this to be a very interesting thing, and could be a bit of a party place. You don't even have to have a karaoke machine anymore if you're into that. But something you would do, Chuck?
No, it's not something I would do, and the world is better for it. But I know plenty of people that are just really karaoke crazy, and so why not? If you've got that catalog and you've got the technology, why not? So good for them, and go sing, David. We want we want to hear you the introduction to In Touch with iOS next time.
Oh gosh, no. Gosh, no. I know Jeff's going to be singing.
Not tonight. My voice is kind of shot. I've been talking like nonstop all day. But yes, I was actually looking in music right now to find it so that I could just see how it looked. And maybe I should have done some research before the show so I could check that out. I haven't played with it yet, but yes, of course I'm going to play with this.
Absolutely.
Okay, Okay, so everybody listening to this, email in what you think Jeff should come and sing on In Touch with iOS.
That's feedback at intouchwithios.com.
Be
Couple
careful
other,
what you ask for, Chuck.
we got the link in the show notes to the press release that Apple released, but then I found this interesting tidbit: the fact that the Apple Music Sing is going to be limited to latest Apple TV, not coming to older models. New feature that they've added this with the Sing is it's unclear why they would not include Apple TVs beyond the 4K 2022 version. I can see maybe you let the 2021 version to be working, but maybe it requires the A15 Bionic chip and HDR10 plus. But I don't understand why Apple's doing this, and I have this feeling that they may backtrack on this. But who knows? Stranger things have happened, don't you think?
Well, we're getting Stage Manager on iPads that Apple
Yeah.
said we couldn't have it, so maybe the same thing will happen here. I would love to know what the limitation is, if it's legit and not artificial.
Yeah,
I've forgotten if there's a chip difference between the respective models or the more recent models of the Apple TV. I don't
there
know.
is. I think it's A12 to A15. I believe it was.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that could be part of an explanation or just simply, hey, this is a brand new capability, and so you're going to need a brand new Apple TV to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm always the one that says this is business. This is the way it is. You give the people something they want, and maybe they'll buy the current version of your hardware. So that doesn't bother me a whole lot, because I don't think that at the price point of the Apple TVs, the karaoke people aren't going to bat an eye. They're going to just say,
Right.
"Oh my God, let's go for it." So, why wouldn't you? And those who are just going to fool around with it or maybe use it once or twice, they probably weren't going to buy the Apple TV just to do that. So,
Right.
Well, Chuck, knowing that you are big into the karaoke scene, and anyhow, okay. So for those of you that haven't done karaoke before, a lot of the discs that you can get are just straight up garbage. So much so that I've actually been to professionally done karaoke events where they're just grabbing stuff off YouTube because it's at least as good as the stuff that they were buying on disc. So with Apple doing this, as crazy as it sounds, Apple could corner the karaoke market just by offering a superior product.
Yeah, they could. Well, we'll see what happens. Plenty of people commenting to people that probably don't really care much that the Apple TV isn't going to be compatible to this. So let's move on to the next story here. This was the story I teased you guys earlier. It just came out a few minutes ago here. The FDA has approved iPhone connectable Dexcom G7 glucose monitor. The FDA has approved this wearable for glucose monitoring for people with all types of diabetes, and company expects to hit the pharmacy shelves in 2023. The wearable is now cleared in the U.S. for people with all the types and up to any ages, and it means an absolute relative difference, which makes Dexcom G7 the most accurate and continuous monitor that they call the CGM, approved by the FDA. So I think this is some exciting times. I know we've been talking about the fact that we want the Apple Watch to be able to do this already in next models, and we've been talking about this for a number of years. And this is exciting. They charge a lot of money for this and the Freestyle Libre for folks who have to do their continuous monitoring. But this is good news, and being able to use it with the iPhone is huge. What do you think, Jeff?
Yep, this is awesome, and this totally plays into what Apple has been very openly pushing towards for a long time, which is making their truly portable devices something that becomes a deeper integral part of our lives, and that means health and fitness as well. So yes,
Yep.
this seemed like something that had to happen at some point, and now here it is.
Yep, I agree. How about you?
Yeah, I agree too. I mean, it was going to happen. It's just a matter of when. Just like there are probably a half dozen other monitoring capabilities that we're going to see in the next however long it takes the FDA to approve them. Because certainly the iPhone has enough power. It's going to depend, I think, a lot on just what else they can build into, like the Apple Watch, or what kind of connectivity they can create with another device that is required to monitor whatever it is that's required to monitor. But I mean, I remember the old days where, if you had a heart issue, you went in, you got a harness, you wore it for 3, 4, 5 days. Well, now the harnesses are substantially easier to wear, and it's going to come to a point where a serious cardiac patient will probably be able to wear a harness or something of that nature full time and have it report to the iPhone. So it's just we're living in the future, and it's coming. It's never quite as fast as we want it to be.
But still, this is pretty fast when you think about it.
Oh,
This
absolutely.
And I've publicly talked. I am diabetic. I have diabetes, and I'm looking forward to being able to take advantage of this, because it's very hard to prick in your finger every day that you have to measure and keep on top of your glucose levels. And this is pretty cool. I had been avoiding using those devices only because they're very expensive, and then you have to have your own reader, and it's not very easy. I might as well just stick with what everybody's been doing. But I'm definitely going to see where this goes next year. So
Awesome.
Very cool.
Next, the last story here for this week. I found this to be very interesting. We talked about this many times in the last year, because this was talked about back in August of 2021. Apple has decided to abandon the controversial plan known to detect known CSAM in iCloud photos. In addition to, we'll be talking about their end-to-end encryption here in a minute here. They announced that they're abandoning this controversial plan, the CSAM. They're looking for child sexual abuse material, and Apple's full statement was, after extensive consultation with experts to gather feedback on child protection initiatives we proposed last year, we are deepening our investment in the community safety feature that we first made available in December 2021. But they have decided to not move forward with the previously proposed CSAM detects tool for iCloud photos. Children can be protected without companies combining through personal data, and we will continue to work with governments and child advocates and other companies to help protect young children, preserve their rights to privacy, and make the internet a safer place. So I think this is a smart move, in my opinion. I think there's been tons of controversy with this subject, with the CSAM and privacy and all that stuff. I'm kind of interesting to see what Apple decided to go this route. What's your thoughts on this, Jeff?
Okay, so first, yes, of course, we need to
always
do what we can to protect children. Well, to protect everyone. And CSAM is something that can be part of that. However, once we start using CSAM as a tool to proactively sift through all the photos on someone's iPhone or Mac, then we now have a different security problem. And so Apple making the move that they did, and you alluded to the fact that we'll talk more about what they're doing with security tonight.
Yep.
CSAM didn't fit well with that, because it created potentially a security and an encryption issue that they wouldn't be able to truly support. And I think that as they started really looking into the feedback they were getting from people, and started looking at everything else that goes along with this in a deeper way than they already were, I think they realized that the optics of what they were doing bad, but then that there are plenty of other ways that Apple can work with law enforcement agencies and other organizations to take steps to help protect those who are most vulnerable in our communities without having to potentially expose a lot of personal information that should be encrypted and safe.
Yeah, absolutely. Any thoughts for that, Chuck?
Nothing that there's not a lot to add to what Jeff said. I mean, this was a slippery
Okay.
slope to start with.
It was.
It sounds like it should be really easy, like so many things. Well, technology will solve this. And, you know, if I have an image here of a child that in a situation where that it should not be, that's got to be pretty easy to detect, right? Well, you know, there are a lot of gray areas. There are a lot of different reasons. We've seen stories about that kind of thing where there were legitimate reasons for taking a picture of a certain body part, you know, for medical purposes. And, you know, suddenly somebody found themselves in pretty serious trouble. The other issue was just the enforcement of this, you know, because Apple's now inserting itself and having to then, you know, say, okay, law enforcement here, you need to check this out, which absolutely
yes, the liability for Apple.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and Apple should not be checking that out. It should be turned over to law enforcement. But, you know, then you get into a lot of questions over privacy, and, you know, and law enforcement seem to be, well, no, I better not say that. Just knowing how everything else is, law enforcement can be inconsistent in its application of the law. Think about speed limits in your state, you know, and what you feel like you can get away with as far as speeding, and then amplify that 500 times when it comes to something like this. So I kind of think that it's good they got out of this business. Absolutely. We should all do everything we can to protect kids or anyone else from any kind of abuse like this. But this may not have been very well intentioned, but probably was not the best way to go about it.
You know,
Yeah,
Chuck, as you were talking, you made me realize that Apple saying, and we've decided to not do the CSAM thing, and then they made some other statements around that, and it sounds like this altruistic thing. I have a feeling it was not altruistic at all. This is completely self-serving, and it's a way that Apple can help insulate themselves from liability. Can you imagine if there was a case that ended up in some criminal court somewhere where someone had an iPhone loaded with images that CSAM should have caught, and on an iPhone, and it didn't? Apple would first look bad, but then second, the lawsuits, holy crap, that would just be a legal nightmare that I cannot imagine Apple wanting to entertain on any level.
And that's Jeff, you're absolutely right. And that's part of the problem, that no matter what the solution is, if it's not absolutely perfect, somebody's going to sue Apple over the fact that it wasn't perfect. And I mean, let's go back to the diabetic monitoring thing. You know that Apple's going to be sued for that at some point because it's not going to be as accurate as somebody thinks it should be. So whether the suit has merit or not, they're going to have to defend it.
Which is ridiculous because Apple doesn't even make the product. It just it's another company's product that can integrate with Apple's. But you're right, Apple will end up getting sued. And as I'm saying this, at some point, someone is going to end up in suing Apple because there will be an iPhone at some point that has images that a CSAM database would have caught, but since it's not there, they'll say, look, Apple was negligent, they backed out of doing this, and it's their fault that these images ended up on that phone.
Agreed. All right, let's go on to the topics this week. Beta, the iOS and iPadOS 16.2 release candidate was released this week as we record, and it's anticipated that iOS 16.2 and iPad OS 16.2 will be released next week as we record this. So hopefully we see all that along with watchOS 9.2 and tvOS 16.2. So exciting to see that. A couple things standing out. Well, Apple Music Sing, which we just talked about, is going to be available in the release candidate and will be available in iOS 16.2 when it drops next week. One thing that is going to happen, Apple is going to expand the 10-minute everyone airdrop limit to all users with 16.2. We did talk about that last week and wondered if that was going to go. We thought originally, I thought it was just going to be introduced in China, but it looks like going forward, it's going to be set for the everyone. So if you have your airdrop set to everyone, it's going to be everyone for 10 minutes. I think that's a smart move, in my opinion. What do you think, Jeff?
I might be misunderstanding, but I thought it was airdrop is for contacts only, airdrop is for everyone, or airdrop everyone for 10 minutes. Right.
I'm sorry if I did not explain that properly, but yeah, it's everyone for 10 minutes. Then contacts only, that's any time. But so there is no limit for that.
Yeah, but you can also have it for airdrop on for everyone all the time as well. Correct?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that's according to what this article says here. So I guess we will find out officially when it finally drops. But
I thought that was the whole point of the limitation.
Yeah,
was to not have it able to be open all the time.
Because people always forget that they have everyone turned on all the time, and then we all see it all the time. We share something. Oh, look, the people over there has theirs is turned on, because obviously they don't even remember that it's on.
Mine's on all the time because it's so unreliable.
Yeah,
to have it
it's right, because I just tried to send myself airdrop to my Mac and it wasn't sending. So, and I have it set, so it's, well, of course, for my own devices. So, but anyway, yeah, that is. We'll talk more about that next week when it hits, and we'll have time to test it and see it, because of course most of us are not on beta for our iOS iPhones. So, but that is notable of the release candidate. So
I did just double check on my iPad that's running the developer beta, and you are correct, and I misunderstood. Okay. So the options are receiving off, contacts only, everyone for 10 minutes.
Right. Yep, that's what it's going to be. There is going to be there is going to be a lot more features that are going to be available, and number of the features, like I said, Sing is going to be available. We'll talk about the encryption and advanced data protection in a minute. We did talk about the Freeform app on the iPad. There's going to be some new lock screen widgets, more always-on options, the live activities for sports scores that's going to hit for the iPhone 14. And we just talked about the new AirDrop settings, and then the new home app architecture. I think Jeff, you and I can probably talk about this next week when it hits, to see what your experience is with it when it comes out. So that's been kind of a pain point with the home app, and it's changing to the architecture. So we'll review more of that when it releases next week and have it in our hands. But I wanted to make sure we spent some time here on this big announcement this week. That Apple plans a new encryption system to ward off hackers and protecting the iCloud data. They announced this week, actually, Joanna Stern had an interview with Craig Federici about this, and it's a good article. I have a link in the show notes to the Wall Street Journal article, as well as a video of her speaking with him, and as well as the press release. And they are adding some 3 advancing features in the iCloud, in the user data with the cloud, representing their next steps of protecting us, including an encryption key, which they have no access to, iMessage contact key verification, security keys with the Apple ID. And I'm super stoked to see that Apple is finally doing something about this with those items. What was your initial thoughts, Jeff, when this was first announced, with the advanced data protection is what they're calling it here?
My first thought was, why did this take so long?
Yeah.
And my second thought was, yes,
Yeah.
because this is something we should have had for a long time. And yes, I know that there are already complaints being raised by various law enforcement agencies. And my take on that is that's too damn bad. You need to hack
Yes.
into my phone. You figure out how to do it. It's not Apple's responsibility to build in security vulnerabilities just to make your job easier.
Yep. And in fact,
Man,
they're
I
going to.
really am Mr. Cranky tonight.
You are. You are. What was your first thoughts on this, Chuck?
Sort of like Jeff's. I mean, we're in an arms race. The hackers and the hackies, and
Yep.
as a hacky, I'm happy that any help I can get, I absolutely appreciate. And the whole law enforcement thing. I mean, that just seems to be sort of a routine thing now, that anytime that there's any kind of privacy, and I'm very much pro law enforcement, but at the same time, I'm pro privacy. And maybe because I like to think of myself as a law abiding person. And so, yes, it'd be great if they could only hack into the bad guys, but we're back to that age old discussion of, it's a key for whoever has their hands on it. So if the bad guys have it, if the good guys have it, it
if
doesn't
the good
matter.
guys have access, the bad guys do too.
Yeah. And so, the answer for the good guys seems to be, okay, just lock it all down. And the bad guys are going to find ways around things anyway. So, I'd much rather have it harder for the bad guys to get in.
I agree. So the end-to-end encryption is going to be on the following categories: device backups and messages backups, iCloud Drive, notes, photos, reminders, voice memos, Safari bookmarks, Siri shortcuts, and wallet passes. Wallet passes. The only categories that won't be protected just yet is our mail, contacts, and calendar, because of the need to interoperate with the global email, contacts, and calendar systems that use legacy technologies. So that is not going to be part of the encryption. It already started with the testing in 16.2, and people will be testing it this week. The end-to-end encryption on the iCloud data can only be decrypted by your trusted Apple devices, which makes total sense. You're signed in with your Apple ID account, ensuring that data is secure, even in the case of a data breach in the cloud. Not even Apple has access to this key. So you can't ask Apple to get this key for you, because they don't have it. If you lose access to your account, it is going to enforce a recovery contact. So you will have to set up a contact that can help you recover if you don't have the recovery key, which will also be provided. And you will be guided to set up at least one of those, one contact or a recovery key, before you can turn on this advanced data protection. I know Joanna Stern asked Craig, is like, why is this turned off by default? And I think my opinion is, I think it's smart, because let the user turn it on, because they're full aware of they're turning it on, and what the consequences are going to be if you don't understand what you did when it's turned on. And if Apple's going to force it to be turned on, just like File Vault on a Mac, it isn't forced to be turned on. It tells you it's going to be turned on, but then you could turn it off. So I think this is smart. So we'll have to come up with I think we'll probably know who we can make a recovery contact. I think that is probably the smarter way to do it, because you have a loved one or a friend or whoever you want to trust to have that be a contact that you can get unlocked out of your device. So this is exciting. I think it is really exciting that they've finally doing this.
Yep, this is great, and I'm with you. Making the end-to-end encryption opt-in instead of opt-out, I think that's the best way to do it for average users, because we are talking about a level of security and a level of responsibility for people that are using it, that it shouldn't just be a mindless, oh yeah, it's doing a thing. It's something that you need to be aware that's happening and prepare for it appropriately. Also, the thing with enforcing an emergency backup person for getting into your account, that's good. And when you do that part, holy crap, people think seriously about who it is that you want to have as that emergency backup. It needs to be someone that's reliable and and that you can seriously trust. And it's and my guideline for picking that person is when I heard about this new thing and how it was going to work, I immediately knew who the person was that I could use as that contact. And that's probably how it'll work for you too. Like you'll know, you know who that person is.
I feel obligated to say once again that if you have anything that is truly confidential, truly that you don't want anybody to see, email or chat is not the place to put it.
Right.
Yes. Good point.
I'm still, of course, I'm always amazed at what people post to social media, regardless, but
yeah, sorry.
But no.
Well, we didn't talk about that pre-show, but I won't bring it up. But.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, those pictures were something, Jeff.
Oh boy, howdy.
But that we all have financial transactions that go back and forth. But if it's really something that is that important and you don't want it known, that's not the place to do it.
Yep. No.
Yep.
I agree. But if you want to have some really light reading, there is links in the show notes to iCloud Security Overview and the Apple Platform Security Guide if you want to have some light reading to find out more about what Apple's doing. It can get very geeky, so I don't recommend it if you aren't going to want to fall asleep when you read that. But it is good information for us who are in the technology world here to know and understand how this works. But I just was super excited. This was announced, I believe it was if it's today or yesterday that the word hit here. So this is some great information here. So with that, let's just talk about a couple more things here. There was one article here I found to be interesting here, and I wanted to talk about it real quick because I got some time here. Is the fastest 5G phones that are around the world. This article here on Ookla, which does a lot of speed testing and such, they broke down with some analysis of what phones were the fastest in the different countries around the world here. It's interesting to see how these 5G phones are working. So like in the first countries listed here is Brazil, and Motorola was looked like the fastest of the download speeds in that country. And then in China, no surprise, Huawei and OnePlus were up there in speeds too. But then you start going down to other countries like Germany, and they have Apple iPhones, and no surprise here you go down to the United States, and the iPhones are dominant as far as the speeds. The top two are the 14 Pro and the 14 Pro Max, getting some pretty good speeds here. And it's good to see that 5G is really working well in the U.S. We still have some dead spots here that we're looking to fill in with the rural areas. But I found this data to be pretty fascinating to see how 5G has come along on this. And what do you think, Jeff? On this is something that you find interesting?
Oh, absolutely. I love seeing tests like this, and I love seeing the numbers, and it's interesting to see which phones are ranking at the top of the list, and consistently it is not an Apple phone.
Yeah,
but they're still in the top of the list. They're just not the top of the list. And then scrolling down and looking at some of the countries, like in Vietnam, where the iPhone 12G, or excuse me, where the iPhone 12 5G is showing up, and actually outperforming the iPhone 13 Pro and 13 Pro Max on 5G.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Any thoughts on this, Chuck?
I'm sort of taking a different angle on this, and I don't want to sound like a naysayer because that's not the way I mean it. But the thing that I find fascinating is the differential between the top. I think, what do they have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The top 5 in each. Sometimes the differential is significant between the top and the bottom. Sometimes not so much, and so I have to wonder at times, how much difference does it really make? Now, if you're trying to download a file, well, that may be important to you. If you're trying to watch a movie, well, I don't know. I don't know how much of a difference it makes. Sure, when I hit the button, I want it to play it instantly. Is that realistic? And how much of a difference is there between one of these the top one, number 1 and number 5? So I think they're all pretty darn fast speeds. There's nothing here that looks like a dog in the top 5.
Yeah.
So
also, I misspoke. So I'm going to call it out now before people start hammering you, Dave, with emails. In Thailand, the UK, and the US, the iPhone 14 Pro was actually the top performing phone. I just missed seeing that as I was scrolling through the data.
Yeah, it's just like China, no surprise. I mean, you get the dominant Huawei and other Chinese phones tend to be more popular, but the iPhone, Apple does pretty well with the iPhone in China as well.
Still, it's interesting. I would love to see data on what's different technology wise in these different countries, because you would think that performance would be the same everywhere because it's the same devices, but clearly it's not the same technology driving 5G, and which could just be it's different hardware. So yeah, I'd love to know what's different.
Yeah, me too. So articles in here in the show notes here. It's very fascinating to see how these phones have just become faster and faster. And 5G is just continues on to be evolving here. So now, speaking of cellular, other article here I wanted to talk about it real quick is what the darn cellular Wi-Fi satellite and symbols that they mean on your iPhone and your iPad. We've always had wonders what all these different icons used to mean, and Macworld did a great write-up here, and I really love this grid here. It's showing starting from the 2G to the 3G and all the way down up to the advanced 5G, and then of course cell and satellite. So I like how it says we always found that when AT&T had that 5GE, that really it was 4G. Or when it was 5G, it was actually 5G. And then you have, of course, the advanced 5G, and some carriers use the little UC, they use a plus, or they use a UW. And then the cell and satellite, you've got all those symbols. But I find it to be fascinating to see how things have kind of evolved here with the different speeds. Now, most of us now these days are on 5G, but you're still going to have some phones out there that are LTE. That are still, on this 4G LTE network, but won't see any more on the 2G or 3G. That band is close gone. Yeah, I found this to be pretty interesting. What do you guys think?
It's interesting and not always consistent.
Right.
So here's my example. When I was switching over from AT&T to Mint Mobile, I was switching from having a SIM card from AT&T to an eSIM for Mint, and so you have an overlap time because you don't cancel the one service before you have the other set up. So when I had Mint on eSIM and AT&T on regular SIM, the Wi-Fi or not Wi-Fi, the cellular signal symbol that I saw is the same one that's for cell and satellite, where it's the broken line, where you have what basically looks like dots at the bottom and then smaller bars on top.
Right.
And my assumption was, what I'm seeing is that I have 2 SIM cards to work with here, which makes sense. But at the same time, now I'm realizing, oh wait, that's also the symbol for when you're doing cellular satellite.
Ah, that's right. And so it does, especially with satellite now with the SOS that's out. Yeah, that definitely is. So,
or I'm misreading what the symbols mean, which says a lot about how ridiculous the
symbols are.
The symbols are.
Yep. Any other thoughts on that, Chuck?
Just make it work. I mean, I think we're interested. I'm not sure the average person, other than just having a diagnostic, part. And the cell satellite, I mean, that's obviously for a more sophisticated user.
Right.
Most of the time, I honestly don't think people paid that much attention. And except maybe when they're buying their phone, then the salespeople are giving them the spiel, and there's, oh yeah, well, I want the fastest I can get. But then they go home, turn it on, use it, and are watching TikTok videos. So,
yep. Lastly, I wanted to close with this discussion. Apple does have at least 5 more things to release heading into 2023. We already talked about iOS 16.2. That'll be out next week. There hasn't been much talk about Apple Pay Later. That was introduced back in June at WWDC. It was supposed to be a feature where you, instead of you actually putting on your Apple Card, you actually could pay later, and they would just break up however many payments you want to do every 2 weeks and on 4 payments, or however it would break down here. So looking like now it may not launch until 2023. You guys remember talking about this before, and I'm surprised. I mean, I guess that also goes along with the Apple Card savings account that was supposed to be coming as well, and that hasn't come to be as of yet. So maybe some banking regulations holding it back, and I don't know what is holding that back for why that hasn't been released just yet.
that would be my guess. That
Yeah.
because anytime you get into the financial institution regulation, it's insane, and it's quadruply insane since Apple's going to have to do it across multiple countries.
Right.
So,
yep.
That's why the Apple Card still hasn't left the United States yet. So
yeah, I mean, this looks great, and both those options will be great when they get here.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of I mean, this is almost worse than the healthcare stuff as far as regulatory approval.
Yeah.
Yep. And the Apple Music Classical, then they did acquire Primephonic, and I'm not a classical music listener of much, but there still has been no sign of the classical app, or if it's going to be integrated. And they've been talking about this for a while, and I'm not sure if that's ever going to. I mean, I would hope eventually it's going to come out. Especially there's plenty of classical music lovers that probably would want this.
I seriously champing at the bit for this. Among the wide and varied tastes that I have in music, I listen to a lot of classical, and so when this acquisition happened, I was immediately excited, and give this to us, people. Tired of waiting.
With all due respect, Jeff, and maybe I'm saying something I don't know what I'm talking about, but I have to wonder if this is just a revenue thing, that it's going to generate some revenue, it's not going to generate enough revenue, so things keep getting precedence over it.
Yeah, could be. I mean, I have no insider information on why this hasn't rolled out yet. I just know that I want it to roll out.
Yeah, and I don't have any either. But that would be my first thing, because otherwise it would seem like, short of some of the ID3 tag issues that classical music seems to have in comparison with the quote unquote popular music, that would seem to be the only issue. So
well, I mean, there's a reason why Primephonic had to be a thing,
right?
And it's the naming for classical pieces gets really complicated.
Yep.
And so Primephonic, give it to me. I want it now.
See what happens. I mean, you got some classical music in the library now, but it's not anywhere near as
well. There's a lot of
as
classical music. It's just hard to
find it,
to get at. Yeah, because how do you get the right name? And it's just frustrating.
Well, let's hope in 2023. Lastly is the self-service repair program, which we all chuckled about when that came out. A lot of talk about getting those big all that equipment they send you, and you got a week to fix it, and it's $1,500 or $1,200 if you don't return it right away. And it was supposed to expand into other countries in Europe, and additional Mac models and Apple Silicon chips were supposed to be added to the end of the year. Who knows what that's going to happen? If Apple's even paying attention to this anymore, honestly, because I just don't. I think we talked about it.
I'm sorry. I just totally jumped in.
Oh, so we talked about it, but go ahead, Jeff.
Didn't Apple add in new Mac models already?
I thought they didn't. At least I didn't hear
Oh,
anything.
it's hard to keep track.
No, I know. So interesting to see what's left. I mean, obviously Macs didn't get announced this year. The newer Macs for the M2 processors going towards some of the new to expand upon the MacBook Pro and the MacBook. The MacBook line.
That's what I was thinking of when Apple added in the MacBook Pro and MacBook Air M1 models.
Yeah, and now there's an M2 MacBook Air, and but they haven't gone any further than that. So we'll see what happens. So, but this was great conversation. Great show this week. There was just a ton to talk about, and we'll have more to talk about next time. So, but for now, let's go ahead and wrap things up. That's a wrap for this week. Please send your comments, questions, and suggestions to our email address. It's feedback@intouchwithios.com. You can follow us on Twitter @intouchwithios. Support the show by buying me a coffee at intouchwithios.com/coffee. We would really appreciate it. You also can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/intouchwithios. We have 2 tiers available to support the show. We would really appreciate it. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe so you're notified when we are live streaming on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/intouchwithios, where you can watch us live at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific on Thursday nights, as well as you can watch the previous shows and listen to the previous shows. Visit In Touch with iOS magazine on Flipboard, where many of the topics we discuss are flipped into that magazine. Our link is in the show notes. You can subscribe to our show in your favorite podcatcher, including Pocket Casts, Overcast, Apple Podcasts, Mirror, so many others. But better yet, go to our website, intouchwithios.com, where all the links to all the ways to listen to us are there. I am Dave Ginsburg, and you can find me on Twitter at DaveG65 and on Mastodon at mastodon.cloud at DaveG65. Chuck Joyner, thanks as always for being here. We really appreciate you coming on the show. Where can people find you?
Hey, thank you, David. Thanks for having me. MacVoices.com is where you'll find me talking to all sorts of interesting people about Apple technology and related topics. You can find us on Mac Voices live Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, whatever time that is, wherever you are. And you can join us in the chat room and throw your commentary in there as well. And on all the socials, including Mastodon, you can find me as at Chuck Joyner and at Mac Voices.
Great. Thank you. And yes, and go there this week, because I was on the latest holiday gift guide. We also had some good choices, and check all those out as well. So
you cost
Jeff,
me money, David.
I did. I know I did. we all of us cost each other's money. Jeff Gammon, as always, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. And where can people find you?
It's always great to be here. So thanks for having me back yet again. I am Jay Gammett on all the different socials. So right now, the ones where you're probably going to look for me would be Twitter, Instagram, and Mastodon. So that would be mastodon.social. And check your gift guides. They tend to be very expensive. For those of us that are on. Shows Mac Voices live on Tuesdays, Thursdays on the big show, and then also here Fridays on the Mac show, and then also on the Context Machine, because Grant Chaffin and I decided to team up again. So
Good
thanks.
stuff.
This is so much fun.
Always is. Thank you, and thank you for listening. We really appreciate it, and appreciate you supporting the show, and we hope you enjoyed it. And we'll talk again soon. All right, thank you, guys.
Boy, I was feisty.
You are.
Yeah, but you know what? That has to be one of the fastest hours plus I've had this week. I had no idea that we'd gone that long. I mean,
I was worried about going over, but I did a little bit. I don't mind though.
Yeah, but the conversation just kind of flowed, but it didn't bog down. So
there was some good. There was always good topics.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, that was. Although the self-service repair thing, that just cracks me up. I mean, I'm looking at the photo of the guy in that article.
Yeah.
You know, he's on an anti-static mat. Let's say he's got 2 torque screwdrivers and the third one in his hand. maybe there were even more than that. You know, I mean, yeah, right. I can just
You know,
see.
when Apple announced the self-repair program, I mean, it was obvious that what they're doing was a preemptive move. And what I was visualizing was Tim Cook channeling his inner Steve Jobs. And it was like when Steve sat there with the iPhone and said, "You're holding it wrong, but you know, you
Oh,
can't seem to
God.
figure out how to do this. You want
I
us to
forget
give you
that.
bumpers for the phone? Fine. We will give you a damn bumper for your phone. Now go away."
Yeah.
And
That was unbelievable.
so Apple's self-repair program is their new iPhone bumper.
Oh, that's funny.
I applaud them because it shut all the critics up. Because if you really want to dig into the guts of your phone or your Mac or your iPad, now you can do it, and at a competitive price.
Mm-hmm.
And
But
then
you
you
have
take it to
limited
Apple
time to do
fix
it.
Yeah, then you can take it to Apple to fix it after you screw it up even more.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
You know, the one time I did a self-repair on an iPhone, it was my iPhone 10. The glass that covers the camera lenses on the back cracked. And actually getting the glass was a lot more difficult than you think. OWC doesn't sell it. And actually the last time I looked at their website for it, they had a link to like some other site where it was actually just this weird thing about here's how you can do it. And but anyhow, so I finally get the glass through Amazon, and the instructions are like, so this is like a 10-15 minute project. No. I sat there with these tools scraping the glass and the adhesive out, and it took this was a multi-hour project, and had to wear safety glasses because there's little bits of glass flying everywhere, and trying to make sure that you don't scratch the actual camera lenses, and you don't want to bump the cameras and knock them out of alignment, and then finally get it all done. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, son of a bitch, there's a thumbprint on the inside of the glass.
Oh no.
Now I know why they included 2 pieces of glass, so you can screw it up the first time, start over, and get it right the second time.
Well, at least you had a second time to do it.
Yeah, and I finished, and I was like, never again. I do not want to do any repair on an iPhone, and this is, I think, literally the simplest repair you can do. And it was like, I'm out.
Yeah.
And typically I don't mind cracking stuff open, but no.
It's fun to crack it open, but I remember the first time I opened an iMac. I mean, it was, by the way, the iMac had a dead power supply. The computer was dead. You know, there was no way it was coming back, and it was sold anyway. So it's like, yeah, there's a perfect chance for me to crack one open and see. And it was really interesting, but you know, I wouldn't want to do that with a machine that I'd spent a couple $1,000s on.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just because I want to get it back together.
Right.
Exactly.
So it's just.
Gonna say goodnight to the live stream. Good night, live
Hey,
stream.
good night.